To the students, thank you so much for coming here in the morning. And I know that, with Operation Sindoor, you have so many questions. So I'm hoping that the questions that I ask will reflect the curiosity that you have. And these are the people who make decisions for us regarding our security and safety. So I think we are so lucky to have them on the stage with us. I'm going to begin with you. I'm going to begin with the Defense Secretary. I want to ask you, Mr. Singh, that, what are the three top priorities right now in terms of modernization of defense forces because of the conflict that's happening in West Asia, the unending war with Russia, Ukraine, and what are the key lessons that we have drawn from this West Asia war?
Is this okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Smita. Obviously, both from Op Sindoor and from the West Asia, as well as the ongoing Ukraine conflicts, you do have lessons that things like the importance of standoff weaponry, of a layered and strong air defense system, of sufficient stockpiles of munitions and missiles, of ensuring that your radars are mobile and your artillery is also mobile. All of those lessons are fairly clear, and we've taken those lessons and accordingly calibrated our procurements, which is why, for example, in the EP side, the bulk of what we did almost 30,000 crore worth of EP contracts after Op Sindoor, and the bulk of those contracts have gone for primarily for drones and counter-drone systems, loitering munitions, and some types of radars and EW equipment as well. So those priorities now will have to be sort of further strengthened. As you are aware, the Honorable Prime Minister had announced a multi-layered sort of air defense and offensive system called under the name Sudarshan Chakra mission from the Red Fort last year. And a committee under the DRDO chairperson has already submitted a initial kind of a pre-feasibility report on that mission. So we will be working on all of that, and even as these committee reports come in, whether it is this or whether it is things like the revision of DAP, we will continue to also focus on ensuring that parallelly we do the fast-track procurement that we really need. And when I say fast-track, I mean that even the procedural changes might take some time, but even within the existing procedures, you should be able to do things faster if you sort of essentially pursue things effectively, which is what we've done over the last 2.5 years. We've signed almost 4.5 lakh crores of contracts in the last 2 years. So yes, we are on the job, and hopefully we will be ensuring that these lessons are not only learned, but they are adequately implemented in terms of filling any critical capability gaps that might exist.
Thank you. There's a lot of curiosity about Sudarshan Chakra. Dr. Kamat, I'll come to you about that. But first, with regard to what we saw in Operation Sindoor and then what we saw in the Ukraine war and what we are seeing in West Asia, we've seen extensive use of drones and of ballistic missiles. And the question in everybody's mind is that what is more important? What should one prioritize? So could you tell me that what is the DRDO doing with regard to helping Indian forces move towards that capability, both in drones and ballistic missiles?
Thank you, Smita, for this question. Am I audible? Yeah. So, with respect to drones, there are a variety of drones. There are the low-cost drones, then there are the medium-altitude, long-endurance drones, and then you have these high-altitude, long-endurance drones. So each of these types of drones needs different capabilities. The low-end drones or the low-cost drones which fly low and can carry ammunition or munitions, I think the Indian industry is quite mature today. So DRDO's focus is not on those type of drones. DRDO is working mainly towards the male and the hail type of drones. Even in male drones now, the Indian industry is reaching a good level of maturity, and we are helping them by providing the technologies which are necessary to build these drones. Hail drones is where our industry doesn't have the capability today, and that is the area where DRDO is focusing on. So at least for the near future, next 10, 15 years, drones are going to play a critical role, as has been seen in the recent wars. And then as the anti-drone capability develops to a point where the effectiveness of these drones will come down, but they will continue to play a role in future wars. When it comes to ballistic missiles, the thought process in the country was that ballistic missiles are only or should only be used for deterrence. But I think based on the recent wars and the fact that our neighbors use ballistic missiles for tactical purposes, a decision has been taken within the defense establishment that ballistic missiles should also be looked at for tactical use in our service. And I think the Defense Secretary can elaborate further. There is a thought process that we should form a conventional missile force, where in addition to the cruise missiles, ballistic missiles will be part of that conventional missile force.
Can I ask you, sir, then is that a learning that we've gone from the West Asia conflict, that we need a missile force now? Is it, and also the civilian targeting that has happened, is it because of that? Because in Operation Sindoor, we generally saw that both countries did not attack civilian targets, or did not target civilian installations, but the West Asia conflict has seen that happening. So do you see that we need to change plans midway?
Yeah, so there is an emerging rationale for a conventional missile force. Given what has happened in West Asia, and to the extent that Pakistan, for example, is building a conventional missile force, its usage was, the paradigm was that it will be mostly used for strategic purposes, but now that that paradigm is shifted, we'll have to adjust accordingly. We will not wait for the institutional part of raising a force will go on in parallel with the, providing these supply orders to industry to start scaling up production of missiles, which is a big challenge in India, because so far we've essentially relied on one producer, one public sector producer, and some, in-house production capabilities of DRDO. We'll have to expand it and make it, across industry on a much bigger scale. But yes, both of these actions will have to be taken. That is the reading of of the Defense Ministry.
Thank you. Marshal Dixit, I'm coming to you. 1 year since Operation Sindoor, what are the lessons that the Air Force learned from that? Where were we lacking, and what changes need to be made, have been made? And what have we learned from the conflicts in West Asia and the Ukraine war?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the first thing which we see is that geography is becoming meaningless. In West Asia conflict, the distance between the adversaries is very large, and they are able to cover it, mainly due to use of air power. However, I just want to make one point here, that the way air power was used in West Asia conflict, it just means, I think it is still going on, their employment of air power was not proper in our sense, compared to what we did in Operation Sindoor. We had cleared conflict termination criteria, and we could achieve it within a very short period of time. So what we have learned, that the sequence of targeting, it is very important. So you have to go for eyes, brains, muscle. If you don't do that, then your conflict may not, if you just hit the brain first maybe, then the system will continue to work. This is what we have seen in Iran happening. Second is that we should be very resilient, because like we have just discussed, missiles will come now.
So sorry to interrupt, because we have students among us. So can you explain this eyes, brain?
Sensors, command and control structures, and then field forces. So first you have to kill the eyes, sensors, electronic sensors, radars, there are drones which are taking photos, maybe jam satellites if possible. That is sensor. If he can't see, he cannot do anything. Because in today's world, the fog of war is actually lifting, because the amount of sensors which are available, the battlefield has become transparent. So because of which we have to hit sensors. And once you hit sensor, you have to hit his command and control center, so that he cannot take decision. Now, little bit of military forces which will be left, which are taking decision on their own, you have to kill them. So this is the way, if you go, you will be able to quickly terminate the conflict on your terms. This is simplified version. There are lot many issues in between which we have to look at. Second is your air defense has to be very good, because your missiles are going to come and all these things will happen. There will be leakers. So you have to prepare for fighting in a situation where lot of damage is happening around you. So you have to become resilient. Third is you have to have mass precision. Fourth is this production on demand. Suppose if the war goes on longer, though in our case it was short, but you never know. So you should be able to put equipment from shop floor to the regiment or to the squadron in double quick time while the war is on. This you are seeing in Ukraine actually happening. So I think these are the overall lessons in short.
But before I hand over to Ajit, just a counter question. I'm sorry. एक बार मेरे पास mic आ जाता है तो just asking you about, when you talk about the sequencing, when you say about the senses, that first you see what is the enemy doing. Probably nobody thought that Iran would get this kind of satellite imagery from China. Did the Americans think about that? Did Israel know that the imagery will be provided by an ally who's sitting separately? So we also probably, when we went for Operation Sindoor, did we see a coordination between China and Pakistan happening? And have we learned a lesson from that to upgrade our skills?
Okay, so without being too open about this answer, ma'am, yes, we are aware what is happening amongst various adversaries and how they are shaking hand with each other. If you just look at their equipment profile, you will come to know the answer. 80% of the equipment owned by Western adversary is supplied by Northern adversary. Similarly, now one more, Turkey is also now joined. So there is a separate access. So along with equipment, a lot of support information also comes. So there is no doubt in that, and we have to be aware about that. And you have to take action so that it does not affect you. That is all I can say at this moment.
Sir, I would like to ask all three of you, we have been, you have talked about the role of ballistic missiles, sensors, air defense, and these equipment. Now, on the other side, we see that we are also going in for large-scale procurement of 4th generation, 5th generation, 6th generation, 4.5 generation plus fighters, and we have our indigenous programs also. So now we are seeing a time when people are using long-range drones and ballistic missiles, and to very good effect that they are even able to take on superpowers. They are not giving up their. So, do you think we also have to look more at these equipment than going in for the conventional fighter force and other equipment like that, sir?
Is that for me?
All three of you, sir.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's an old ever since Elon Musk said that, Air Force pilots are no longer required. I mean, this debate has been he's put the cat among the pigeons. I think we look forward to a situation where there will be a combination of manned and unmanned aircraft working together in a network-centric and data-centric environment. That is the way we are proceeding, and therefore we are proceeding with procurements of 4.5 generation aircraft, our 5th generation fighter program, hopefully entirely indigenous, the AMCA, and as well as various unmanned combat vehicle programs that DRDO and HAL are undertaking. So that, I mean, in many of these sort of debates, which are we create a duality where there is actually a kind of a balance where you have to do a bit of both. And that is the intent and that is the way we see it, and that is how we are proceeding. But we've not lost sight of the fact that long-range precision weaponry ultimately will be quite decisive in wars, and that is where increasingly we see that in missile production we have to sort of expand our production base and go to the private sector as well.
I agree with what Defense Secretary has said. I think the role of fighter aircraft is not going to go away in the near future, at least next 15, 20 years. What will happen is the man-unmanned teaming. The manned fighter and the unmanned aircrafts will have to work together, as Defense Secretary said, in a networked environment to get the most effective solution to do attack options.
Actually, it's a question about cost effectiveness. Fighter aircraft has repeatability. He is able to revisit. Also, in contested environment, there is a pilot who is able to take decision and agree to the or follow the rules of engagement and act in unforeseen situations which may not be programmed in a drone or an AI kind of swarm. So, going to future, you have to have fifth generation technologies on fighter aircraft, stealth, network-centric warfare, man-unmanned teaming, and long-range weapons and very sophisticated advanced electronic warfare suite. So this has to come in, and means in our lifetime, we are not going to see demise of fighter aircraft. However, fighter aircraft will be carrying 3-4 loyal wingmen with him. That we will see in next 4 or 5 years. That is my opinion.
Sir, you have talked about the 4.5, 5th and 6th generation also. We are now interested. Are we going in for the, you said 5th generation would be completely indigenous, but are we also looking at the options from interim options of buying 5th generation from outside? And have we taken a call on the 6th generation, because we have been talking to people?
So on 6th generation, given the nature of the investment required, it will have to be a partnership, and we've made overtures to both of these two ongoing 3-country partnerships that are there. Let's see what the response is. We've made it clear to, in fact, both of them that we are interested and we could consider partnering them for a 6th generation fighter program. What was the other question about the our 5th generation aircraft? The AMCA is, as you know, the procurement process is on. The RFP hopefully will be released soon to the shortlisted bidders who happen to be from the private sector, and hopefully that will then pick up pace.
Right. Since we're talking about Operation Sindoor, all the wars that we've had so far, they've been short-term wars or conflicts, whether it is Op Sindoor, whether it was Kargil, even if we go so far back as the Bangladesh war, they were short duration ones, and then we plan for what the enemy is planning next time. I just want to know that after what one has seen in the Ukraine war situation, what one has seen in this West Asia conflict, is the world moving towards these long wars all over again, like what we saw or what our earlier generation saw with the Korean War, with the Vietnam War, where it just goes on unending, there's no end to the war? And if that is the case, are we planning for these long wars that we might be engaged in, high intensity long wars? I would like to ask you, all three of you actually, that what kind of planning goes into this? With you, Defense Secretary, first.
So, there is a distinction. We've not had a protracted war, and certainly not in the recent future, partly because we've kept it calibrated. Once we've achieved our objectives, we've sort of called it a day, so to speak. The distinction between some of these protracted conflicts that you're seeing right now and us is, of course, that our adversaries are both nuclear powered, and so are we. So the assumption would be that in the normal course, under this nuclear overhang, you wouldn't see a very long run damaging conflict. It is more likely to be short term, but you never know. That is a kind of a deterrence paradigm that we normally operate in, that it should not normally spill over into very long-term sustained population and economic damage, which would be intolerable for the adversary to sort of accept. So, yeah, I mean, it is the deterrence among nuclear powers is always under the shadow of the unthinkable, as a former sort of Nobel Prize economist once mentioned. So it's we'll have to see. But I wouldn't necessarily say that just because the Ukraine conflict has gone on for so long, or the Iran issue is going on, and they've shown surprising levels of resilience, that doesn't mean that it necessarily translates entirely into our context as well. And let me end by also saying that frankly, the political utility of having a nuclear bomb actually is validated by these long-term conflicts in many ways. And people would argue that whether it is Ukraine or whether it is Iran's quest for a bomb and North Korea's apparent acquisition of a bomb, I mean, most strongmen around the world would imagine that the way for survival, existential survival, is by getting that capability as quickly as you can.
Right. Dr. Kamat, this long war, Mission Sudarshan Chakra is something that everybody is curious about. If we are pulled in for a long war, like what is happening in West Asia and Ukraine, where are we with Mission Sudarshan Chakra? Where?
So, as Defense Secretary mentioned, we have just made a feasibility report. This report will be submitted to the Honorable Raksha Mantri now, and based on that, a program will be launched for Operation Sudarshan Chakra. So, as the Honorable Prime Minister said, this will take about 10 years, but it will be done in phases. With our existing weapon systems, we'll create a first phase in the next 2-3 years. The second phase will be about scaling up what we have. And then the third phase will get in a lot of new technologies which are required for providing a full cover to the country. But the challenge of long wars is, as Vice Air Marshal Dixit said, is the resilience of your supply chains and the ability to do surge production. This capability has to be built up in the country. We have never planned to scale up our production because our procurement processes are also very slow. However, with the emerging scenario and the possibility of fighting a long war, we will have to look at how to build up this surge capacity and build in resilience in our supply chains.
Right. One question, then I hand over to you. When we're talking about supply chains, what did we learn from Operation Sindoor in this respect? And with this integrated theatre commands, they'll be made fine, but if the supply chains are not as efficient and we keep waiting for the L1 to be cleared, will it be as efficient as these theatre commands, or will it be like dead on arrival? I'm sorry I sound a little pessimistic, but if we have a cumbersome process, then these chains, how will it be delivered to the theatre commands?
So there are two different questions in your statement, ma'am.
I want to ask the questions before Ajit takes over.
Okay. So you're talking of two different things. One is the demand side. That is a process, which is L1 in the, say, colloquial language. That, I think, under Defense Secretary, we have taken good care of. If you, and I am saying this, if you look at numbers, like this year we have been able to spend 9% more than the previous year. So in order placement, there is enough furti, the way, if you put it bluntly, it is increased, because I have seen this for a long time now. Now the supply side has to catch up. Actually, supply side, they are building the capacity. They are still in the process of building capacity, and there are too many players. Consolidation is taking place, and once that happens, then I think we will get supply also going. Another added thing is that our equipment is now getting accepted for export and by other people. So there is some pull from their side. Once that happens, I think we will be okay, but it will take about 2-3 more years. We will get the supply correct. The demand side, we are 100% sure that with this new DAP, it will be sorted out.
And the theatre command?
Okay, so theatre command is a concept which segregate force application and force generation. So force application right now is being looked after by the same people who are doing force generation also. That means they are planning for induction, maintenance, training, HR, and same people are fighting the war also. So we are saying that people who fight war should be kept separately, a small group of people, and we are calling it theatre command, where they will make a lot of plans, scenarios, war gaming, and continuously they will keep doing that. That is the main difference.
So you'll be using AI generated products for this also, right? So is that going to happen, and are we ready with that?
So, ma'am, AI, we are now started talking, we have started implementing a lot of things related to AI are happening at various levels, from squadron or core level up to headquarter level. Each service is doing a large number of projects. We are, we are learning along the way, and our final thing is the decision support system and how to shorten this loop between sensor and shooter, because see, you have to identify the target and you have to find the best shooter to allot to him. This is what AI will help us with, human taking the final decision. Means we should not take the human out of the loop. So there we are working on this aspect.
Yeah. Kamat sir, I want to ask you about first, like we talked about the conventional missile force. Can you tell us what all are we ready with for this conventional missile force, and how will it look like, sir? And Defense Secretary sir, we talked about the AMCA production, and you said there are 3 private companies who are going to take part in that, who have been shortlisted and who will be issued the tender. And I think for the first time in last 7-8 decades, we'll have a situation where HAL would be out of 2 mega aerospace projects, that is the Rafale project as well as the AMCA project, that is good around 7.7 lakh crores worth of projects. As a Defense Secretary, where you are pushing for Make in India, would you be, do you think this is something to worry about, or this is a happy situation as far as creating new options is concerned, sir?
That's the first.
So I think most of our major defense producers in the world, the US, the Russians, the Chinese, all have 2 fighter production lines in 2 separate companies. Sometimes both are public in China, but they do have 2. In the current case, I would imagine that putting all your eggs in one basket is not a good idea. You should have at least some levels of limited competition, which is why we are perfectly happy. We would have been perfectly happy if HAL was there in AMCA, but even if they are not, I would imagine this is the prototype stage. So at the production stage, they could still get their chance. Having, in terms of Rafale and what happens there, we'll see. But on the whole, I would prefer redundancy and having separate production lines, hedging your bets across different industry partners rather than confining yourself to one particular case, because then supply chain vulnerabilities also tend to get concentrated.
So with respect to the conventional missile force, as Defense Secretary mentioned, the structure has not yet been formed. But what I consider would be required in a conventional missile force would be ballistic missiles for short ranges, medium ranges, and ranges maybe up to 2,000 kilometers. So you would need ballistic missiles of these 3 types. And you would also need cruise missiles, you would need hypersonic missiles. So it would consist of variety of missiles which give you the capability of striking at different ranges for tactical application.
And sir, can you tell us what is the level of readiness and the missiles that we have for hypersonic, cruise and short-range ballistic missiles?
So for short-range ballistic missiles, the Pralay, which is now in the final stages of testing, that should be ready. Then we have some of our strategic missiles which can be converted to tactical usage for the medium range and the higher ranges. With respect to the hypersonic, we are working on two programs, the hypersonic glide missile and the hypersonic cruise missiles. The hypersonic cruise missiles is one which has a scramjet engine, and it is powered during its flight. The hypersonic glide missile is a missile which uses a booster to give it the initial velocity, and then it just glides without any powering. The glide missile will come out first. We should be doing the first trials fairly soon, and that is at a more advanced stage than the cruise missile. The cruise missile, the program has not yet been sanctioned, although we are working on the various technologies which will get into the cruise missile. Recently, we have done a scramjet propulsion for more than 1,000 seconds. So that's been a major achievement, and once the program is sanctioned, we'll convert the scramjet propulsion into a working missile system. And I think that should take about 5 years after the sanction.
And sir, on the missiles that we used during the Operation Sindoor, BrahMos supersonic cruise missile was one of the main important weapons. Now, one of the issues, the missile is very good, it performed very well, but one of the major issues is the cost, and we are looking at future of low-cost warfare. Everybody wants that. So, are we looking at an alternative which is cheaper and much better than what we get in the joint venture?
So we are looking at two ways to address the situation which you mentioned. One is we are trying to reduce the cost of BrahMos, and that is being done by looking at each subsystem and how we can reduce the cost. The second missile that we are looking at is a long-range anti-ship missile, which was the original role for the BrahMos. This is a fully indigenous missile, which can fly faster than BrahMos. And that program also we have done 2 development tests, and the 3rd development test is also planned very soon, most likely in the month of May. And once the development trials are over, we'll offer it to the users, and with their concurrence, we'll go through the user trials, and we hope to get it inducted in the next 2 to 3 years.
And these are hypersonics?
These are hypersonic. But they are glide, they are not powered. So initially they will be boosted with a booster, rocket motor, and then you will have.
Question to Marshal Dixit. When Operation Sindoor happened, there was spate of media articles, 2 plane gir gaye, 3 plane gir gaye, and then there were international media, reports also. And it plays a kind of a psychological warfare in this country. I think everybody gets very sensitive, not realizing that in war you lose aircraft. It happens. And I think it all fell into place when we saw in this West Asia crisis, America has lost so many planes and so many aircraft, military aircraft, and you don't see that kind of breastbeating that one saw in India when that happened. But there's also the question which lots of people asked is after the Ukraine war as well as this war, was that is India with a limited budget over-investing in expensive conventional systems? Should we go in for low cost and long range systems? I'm obviously talking about drones and missiles.
Okay, so yes, drones and missiles, though they may appear low cost, what is their effect? And you see, if you address a target, let's say airfield, if you put down the airfield, it can be easily repaired. So how many times you will be able to send vis-a-vis what is the cost of the weapon which is getting delivered from the aircraft. So if you do this mathematics little bit, you will find that the aircraft will always be cheaper in a long term, because you can generate, let's say, 6 sorties in aircraft in 24 hours, and the weapon which it is carrying is much cheaper than a missile or ballistic missile. Like he just said that BrahMos is costly. It is costly. So in that same thing, maybe let's say if we are able to put Pinaka on, Pinaka is the rocket system on Rafale, let's say we put it. So in the same cost, I will put 100 Pinaka there. So that cost damage ratio, it has to be very, it has to be balanced out. And we are groping at various places. And this is one thing. Second is all kind of options should be available to the commander. Because what situation you saw during Op Sindoor or what situation we have seen in West Asia, the next time whenever anything happens, the situation may be completely different and you will have to have a different kind of mix so that the target system can be addressed accordingly. So I must have all options available. So because of which I should have equipment which is costly, equipment which is cheap, equipment which is precise, equipment which is not so precise. So all kind of things I should have. At different stages of operations, I use different type of weapon system.
Defense Secretary, sir, on this point, I want to ask you, like you have been very closely associated with the reports on the capability development that the Indian Air Force needs in next, say, 15, 20 years. Sir, now the Indian Air Force is projecting a requirement of around 66 squadrons by 2047. Is that number realistic? Secondly, when we look at this, how will the Indian Air Force look like? Will it have unmanned force also? Because we see that the army has already created sort of an unmanned force with huge focus on drones. So how will the Air Force look like, sir?
Well, I mean, of course, the army in the context of recent developments in warfare has raised these Astmi platoons and the Shaktivan regiments and all that for loitering munitions in the tactical space. The Air Force actually was the first to get at least the male category drones and UAVs, particularly for ISR. I think they have a fairly significant number of UAVs from Israel. They were the first to move that, and in the future, of course, we've tied up with one large contract with General Atomics of the US, which will provide these HAIL category drones for all three services. So that process, as I said, it's not a either-or situation. We will need squadrons. This figure of 66, I'm not really sure that has not really been discussed at the top level. So I wouldn't know, but for the time being, we are focusing on their existing play, which is ensuring that their critical gaps in terms of fighter aircraft, in terms of refuelers, and in terms of AWACS, all three are met. All three categories we've put on the procurement cycle. It is a long cycle, all of you are aware, but all three are in the procurement cycle now, and hopefully we'll be signing contracts in the next year or so for all three categories.
And Kamat sir, for the unmanned combat air vehicles, sir, we are looking at the Ghataks. So will when they come out, when you are ready with them, will they be just like fighter aircraft, or like they will look like a Rafale without a pilot, or how will that be, sir? And what percentage will that be of the total Air Force strength, sir? If you can tell us, sir.
So they will be like fighters. They would be a stealth fighter. They will be equivalent to a stealth fighter. So it will be about a 13-ton class, so LCA type fighter aircraft. The numbers what Air Force will have in the long run, I'm not sure, but the one which recently cleared the DPB, I think, has 67.
Dr. Kamat, whenever one reads about, reads papers written by think tanks abroad, they all say that India doesn't invest enough in R&D. This is true of every sector in every industry, but in defense, it is a little concerning because we have such a hostile environment. Do you feel that the country spends enough? Does the Defense Secretary release enough funds for R&D, and what about the private sector?
So today we are spending about 5% of our defense budget, between 5 to 5.5% of our defense budget on R&D. And that 2 also includes a lot of our strategic program work where it's actually construction of sites for storage. If you look at our competitors like China, it spends between 10 to 12% of their defense budget, and their defense budget is 3 times our defense budget. The US's defense budget is $870 billion, and they spend 15% of their defense budget on R&D. So there is a definite need to increase the R&D spending. But it's not enough that the R&D spend is done only on DRDO, because we have limited strength, so we don't have the capacity to also absorb a lot more funds. So what we need to do is to promote R&D in the private sector, in the PSUs, so that we get a holistic spending of the money and we get the bang for the buck. The Honorable Raksha Mantri has promised us that over the next 5 years, the R&D budget will be doubled. And we are now looking at mechanisms in the Department of Defense R&D to see how we can promote R&D within the private sector. And I think Secretary DP has also asked all the DPSUs to spend a fraction of their profits on R&D. So I'm sure the situation will improve in the country over the next 5 years, and then we will be able to compete with our neighbors.
Speaking of competition, Mr. Singh, I want to ask you that 50,000 crores in defense exports by 2029, that's the target that we had. Are we on target to achieve this? One. And the second part of my question is that after the West Asia conflict, every country around the world is rethinking about their security scenario. They don't want to rely on a third party or on an ally for defense. They don't want to outsource it. And many of them have realized that outsourcing it to a strong ally made them sitting ducks. So tell me, are we going to see renewed interest in our defense sector with other countries wanting to purchase from us?
So on the exports, 50,000 crore is going to be easy. We'll certainly exceed that figure by 2030. We've done 38,000 crores last year, which is a 61% jump over the previous year. So, and part of it is simply because of the conflicts around the world, because of which the demand for a lot of conventional munitions, artillery shells, etc., has gone up. And as a result, the boost that we see in our exports last year is largely led by the public sector, as against the the previous times when it was largely led by the private sector. On what was the second part of your question? Yeah, so I mean, obviously the figures speak for themselves. There is a lot of interest, not so much in the developed countries, but certainly in Asian and African countries for these for our systems, many of which are battle tested. And also we are working on an exclusive sort of line of credit scheme for the defense sector. We've again, that is now going to the cabinet. So hopefully we will have a special scheme to provide LOC for some of these Asian and African countries which might need some prompting in terms of low-cost funding in order to take, orders or give orders to us. So that is, I mean, as I said, 50,000 crore will not be a problem. You talked about alliances and alliances fracturing. I would say alliances are fracturing in the sense that maybe the Europeans feel insecure about the, about the American umbrella, and now they are therefore, to a great extent, they've reached out to us. They've signed a strategic partnership agreement with us quite recently, and a lot of B2B sort of negotiations are ongoing to have defense industrial partnerships at scale between EU and us. The Italian defense minister is here today, and he's, he and other European countries are really keen on partnering with India because they know that while the technology is with them, the production scale and the cheap labor is not available with them simply because they have aging population. They hardly have any, labor available to take care of their own basic requirements. In fact, they are needing to import labor. So you will see those partnerships grow, but alliances sort of reshape themselves. I mean, in response to, the NATO umbrella sort of be looking a little, this thing, the Germans and the French are talking to each other about, sharing the French umbrella and all of that. And of course, you have the Saudi-Pakistan strategic agreement whose details nobody knows, but that is also there. So yes, I mean, all that will, alliances will reshape themselves, but I don't think it's a question of people going it alone. But yes, it is a question of people generally rearming, devoting more attention to supply chains and to trusted geographies rather than to, supply chains that may be vulnerable during conflicts.
Yeah. Sir, there is a question, Marshal Dixit, somebody has messaged me. They say that when they watch it on TV, the number of missiles that Iran fires in one night, the ballistic missiles, it's more than what we produce in a year. So is that something that you represent the tri-services? Is that something about which all of them, all the services are thinking? And how soon can we see this getting implemented in terms of ballistic missiles and other equipment?
Yeah, so we have done a study in our contest, because Iran contest was different and they were aware about this for I think more than 40 years, and they were preparing for this kind of thing. See, both the neighbors are nuclear armed, and so we have to keep it below nuclear threshold. We cannot go all out like Iran went. So in this situation, and we also have to have targeting philosophy like I said earlier. So we have done a study and we exactly know what is the number of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. We know as on date. We are aware what is the number. Now coming to the production part. So production also we are in touch with DRDO and DTP and various public sector DPSUs basically, and even private sector. So for missile production, we are going to include private sector also. So maybe in next 2-3 years, we should be able to see the number of missiles which are being produced in India. It will, I think, double or triple.
I want to ask you, Mr. Singh, you're talking about fractured alliances in the world and new umbrellas being formed. We see, Marshal Dixit, we've also seen, as, we watch these exercises which happen between India and other countries, war exercises, training exercises. But with these new alliances forming and the traditional allies becoming now fractured and moving on to the other side, what happens when we do these exercises? Are we letting them in on our systems which can be used against us? That is the military aspect. Two, when we are doing the imports from these countries, does it matter at all who we export to, who we import from, with now nobody knowing who's your ally and who's your adversary?
So on the exercises part, I'm going to ask Marshal Dixit to discuss. Obviously, there is enough sort of separation to ensure that no leakage takes place. On the other part about
who we buy from,
who we buy from, yeah, I mean, we actually, it actually creates some delays in our export process because we always take MEA's kind of an NOC before we export to certain countries. So there is that, and probably we'll need to move towards a system where we have a negative list and everything else should, go on a kind of green channel. I think that will have to be worked on to improve our process of granting export licenses so that our private sector companies are able to grab opportunities rather than waste time, waiting for licenses and all of that. But yes, obviously geopolitical factors matter, and MEA should have a say in which countries we export some of our, at least the more critical or strategic equipment to. Obviously their views are important, but it should not become a drag in the process.
Just before that, for example, if we were sending something to Saudi Arabia, now we know that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have a defense contract or understanding or whatever you want to say. Now, do we stop sending it to Saudi Arabia? Do we stop exporting to them? How does it work?
So that's what I said. We'll take MEA's clearance before we come up with those engagements. As far as I'm aware, Saudi Arabia has never bought anything from us. They buy entirely from the West, mainly for the Americans, because they are, obviously they have the resources to buy. Their problem is, as you would have noticed during this war, that they've been using THAADs and Patriots, $3 million missiles to shoot down, $30,000 drones, and obviously the asymmetry is there, and that is why they are so concerned, and they probably will have to look at other options. And if we come in at that stage, I would imagine for defense, it should be easier to sort of sell even to countries in West Asia. For hardcore offensive weapons, maybe we'll have to sort of take a careful look, but those decisions will be taken in consultation with MEA.
Marshal Dixit.
Sizes are very calibrated in nature. So when we start doing exercises with any friendly foreign country, we generally start with discussions and HADR related, human and disaster relief. Those are the exercises which we are attempted first. Because that is how we build trust and we build understanding of each other's procedures. Even when we graduate to exercise with the troops or with force, that also in a setting which is slightly artificial in nature. Even the weapons which are simulated or the ranges which are simulated, those are not the real ones. Those are agreed between both of us. So like this, we are able to actually not let go of all our secrets, and also we learn how they see. More important is how they behave, how they talk to each other, how are they comfortable with us, how much are they comfortable with us. So these are the intangibles which actually increase in exercise, and the real worth is flying together or running together or shooting together. So those are the things which are well calibrated and well managed in the setting.
Okay.
Defense Secretary, sir, just wanted to ask you, like we talked about alliances, new alliances taking shape. Recent times, about 2-3 years ago, there was a feeling that even though there was not a statement or government official stand, but there was a feeling that now we have gone slow on buying equipment from Russia. And we are more moving towards the American side. Now, last couple of years, we see American behavior, not just with India, but globally. There was talk that we are going slow with them, and they have not been found to be very reliable partners. How does the Indian procurement work in that way? Like, and now we are seeing that Russia again is back in the good friend book. So, how do you see that affecting the overall long-term policy of the ministry in terms of procurement, partnerships?
I think India is pretty unique in the sense that it has seems to be friends with everybody. We are friends with Iran and with Israel at the same time. And in the context of different supply partnerships, I think US, France, Israel, they have helped us diversify our procurement away from Russia, which used to take about 60-65% of our orders. Now it is down to about 40%. So yes, there is a diversification away. We are picking and choosing based on our interests, our priorities, and based on the equipment that we need. And for the most part, I think almost 100% of the time, we take decisions based out of our strategic autonomy, based on our choice of what we do. I mean, we took the S-400, I remember, at a time when there was, some concern and some pressure from the US not to sort of go in for that. And I'm sure the political leadership in this country will continue to exercise that sort of independent pathway towards procurement decision making, and we will not let others guide us on what we take from whom. But yes, we are diversifying and ensuring that we modernize our equipment and reduce our dependencies.
Kamat sir, during the Operation Sindoor, globally it was talked about that it was a battle between Chinese weapon systems versus the Indian, French, Russian and other origin systems from the Indian side. That was also the first time when DRDO's weapons were used in a good manner, good effect, how did it feel that now your own weapon systems are getting inducted and being used in warfare?
It was a matter of great pride for us that the weapons which were inducted into our service from DRDO partners, because DRDO doesn't produce the systems, we do the development and the production is then done by the industry, that our developed weapons were used extensively during the 4-day conflict and they have performed reasonably well. So it was a matter of great pride. It has given the scientists the more motivation to work harder and produce weapons which will then serve our services in the future.
And sir, how does it feel when you see that in striker versus WAP kind of battles on social media, you don't have to say anything and there is a huge army fighting for you?
Let me not comment on what happens in the social media. I think it's best left to reporters like you. I will stick to doing my work and we will not take part in battles on the social media.
So, Dr. Kamat, to you, when you talked about Operation Sindoor and the success stories and the sense of pride that you had with regard to, weapon systems competing with the world's best, China probably learned its vulnerabilities in that conflict. Did we learn about our vulnerabilities in Operation Sindoor 1? Because many say that the conflict probably ended quickly because we learned what we had to learn and now we are upgrading it because technically Operation Sindoor is still not over. We are still in a situation where we need to learn and upgrade. So what are your priorities now to plug those vulnerabilities?
Yeah, so every battle gives you some lessons and you have to learn from it and improve your systems. One thing is very clear, you have to be able to operate in GPS denied environment. EW environment also is going to be very important. Your weapons, your platforms have to operate in a EW dominant environment. Of course, the technologies are also changing very dramatically. You have to adapt to these technologies. AI, we are introducing AI-based decisions making in all our sensors, weapons to speed up their decision making. We are also focusing on directed energy weapons. As it was mentioned, the cost effectiveness of your response is also very critical. You can't be firing $3 million missiles at $30,000 drones. So directed energy weapons where the cost per shot is only in 100 rupees or 200 rupees are the way to go for defeating drones. If there is a swarm of drones and you will need a directed energy weapon based on microwave. So we are working on those solutions. Yes, we have learned the lessons from this short conflict and also from the conflicts which are going on globally. And we are implementing in our systems that we develop.
Sir, the audience wants to ask all three of you, does India need a long-range strategic missile like what we know about the Agni 6? If yes, by when is it coming?
So I will say no comments. It is the government's decision. We are ready whenever the government gives us the go-ahead.
The government is sitting here.
Political leadership. Political leadership is the right.
Right. Dr. Dixit, Marshal Dixit, I have to ask you about the drone swarms. How are we, as civilians, we are all terrified now, like not just about fire safety if you're living in a high rise. You're also worried when you look at, how in this West Asia conflict, civilians living in buildings were targeted. How do I know sitting in a high rise building that there are some Indian Air Force personnel living in this building and Pakistan would target them in that? It's just a valid question of fear. So does that mean that in the near future, we are going to be seeing even civilian installations, not just say a Bhaba or Jamnagar factory, which will have anti-drone capacities, but even civilian infrastructure will need this. How will you protect me as a civilian? Not just in the border, but right in the middle of the city.
Okay, ma'am. So the situation at border is very clear. There is no issue there. Now, your question is regarding this rogue drone. So somebody can launch a drone and send it anywhere.
Because our enemy is a rogue, right?
We have seen that happening in Russia also. Operation Spider was carried out by Ukraine, I think 4,000 kilometers inside the Russian territory, where they destroyed their strategic bombers, or 6 or 7 of them, where a drone was carried in a truck, a small drone, and it was guided. So this is a new kind of terror thing which is there. So there are 2-3 things which are happening. One is that we are trying to create a policy to tackle this. Second thing is there has to be a process in place. Not anybody or everybody should be allowed to fly drone. So like you cannot fly aircraft just like that. So there has to be some process which is also being put into place. Now third is what if somebody violates these? So for that, there are provisions in Mission Sudarshan Chakra, where a lot of places, close to about 2,000 places in India, we are trying to identify, where we will be able to give drone umbrella, rogue drone umbrella, using, like Kamat sir said, either high power microwave or direct regenerative weapon.
Right. Last question. Mr. Singh, when Marshal Dixit talks about, but that's a terror thing, can we really separate terror from our adversary? Because our adversary uses and has used in every conflict with us a mix of the two. So can we say that our enemy is not a terror force also, or employing terror tactics?
So we've never made any secret of the fact that we believe they use terror as an instrument of state policy, and they've been doing it right since almost immediately after independence, when they used tribal fighters to try to get into Kashmir. So there's nothing new about that tactics. It hasn't changed. And what has changed a little bit after Op Sindoor is that we've made it clear that for terror attacks that target our civilians, our infrastructure, which are directly traceable to their country, we've made it clear, the Prime Minister has made it clear, that the new normal is that we will then respond invariably at a time and place of our choosing, so that some level of uncertainty hopefully will get baked into their systems as well, and that it will not be a costless exercise for them to carry out terror attacks, which they thought they could with a combination of deniability and obfuscation, they could do with impunity. That at least that impunity factor is gone, and uncertainty factor would have come in, that there will be a response, and the response could happen anywhere.
I think I have time for maybe one more question. What are the priorities, Dr. Kamat, would you say, for DRDO? And what is the first 3 things that you would want DRDO to want from the government and want from the private sector to concentrate on, if we are still in a state of heightened conflict?
Yeah, so our priority is to now get in all the disruptive technologies which have emerged recently into our systems. So AI, quantum technologies, then all these directed energy weapons. So our focus is increased. Cyber. These are the areas where our focus will increase dramatically. We are planning to work closely with industries to transfer the knowledge that we have gained in our traditional systems so that they can look at those systems going ahead. And we will work together with the industry. In fact, in all our mission mode projects, we have 1 or 2 development production partners. We hope that the knowledge transfer happens because of this mechanism, and they can subsequently take forward the life cycle support upgrades of those systems. And DRDO, we want to move on making sure that the nation is not denied any critical technologies. We have the capabilities of making all those critical technologies within the country. So that is our focus. My request to private sector is also to spend some of their money on R&D. As I said, the government will increase funding of R&D in the private sector going ahead. But it will be good if they also spend a part of their profits on R&D. This will widen the base and will result in achieving Atmanirbharta much sooner than later.
I think, should we wind up or do I have? Yeah, we have. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sparing the time and talking to us. And we know which way the country is headed. Keep us safe and secure. That's what we ask of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I would just request everyone to be seated. The security team will come just for a quick check over here because the Honorable Raksha Mantri is about just 10 minutes away. He's on his way. So please, everyone.